This anime follows the adventure of three teenagers who are transported to another world. Usato is an ordinary high school student with no remarkable achievements. On the other hand, Inukami and Kazuki are the most popular students at their school. They are known for earning the highest exam scores and are often rumored to be dating because they are always seen together. One rainy day, Usato realizes he has forgotten his umbrella. As responsible student council members, Suzune and Kazuki can't just leave him behind. Luckily, Kazuki has a spare umbrella, so he lends it to Usato and invites him to walk home with them. Usato never expected to spend time with the school's most popular students, and he quickly becomes comfortable talking with them. While walking home, Usato casually asks if the two of them are dating. Since many other students have made the same assumption, Kazuki immediately denies it, while Inukami explains that they simply spend a lot of time together because of their student council duties. She understands why people would think otherwise, but she appreciates that Usato chose to ask directly instead of spreading rumors. As they continue talking, Inukami opens up about her future. She admits that she has no real career goal because she can accomplish almost anything once she sets her mind to it. Sometimes she even feels like she doesn't belong where she is. Although their reputations are completely different, Usato understands exactly how she feels, deep down. He also longs for a life that is unique and exciting, far away from his dull everyday reality. Suddenly, Inukami and Kazuki hear the sound of a mysterious bell. At the same moment, a magic circle appears beneath them and drags all three of them into another world. When they wake up, they find themselves standing before a king. The king explains that they have been summoned as heroes to defeat the demon king threatening the kingdom. Being separated from his family, Kazuki refuses to accept the situation and immediately demands to be sent home. In contrast, Inukami is excited by the opportunity to begin a new life in another world. Unfortunately, there is currently no way to return them to Earth. However, the king promises that one day they will find a method to send them back. Since Usato never heard the mysterious bell before being summoned, the kingdom concludes that he was accidentally dragged into the summoning. When their magical abilities are examined, Kazuki is revealed to possess the light element, a power considered nearly unbeatable against demons. Inukami receives the lightning element, another incredibly powerful combat attribute. However, when Usato's magic is evaluated, the examiner immediately panics and rushes to report the results to the king. After hearing the report, the king becomes visibly anxious and starts thinking of a way to move Usato somewhere safe. Not long afterward, a woman named Rose arrives and asks if the heroes have already appeared. When she notices Usato, she asks if he is one of the summoned heroes. The king explains that Usato is just an ordinary boy who was accidentally caught in the summoning. Rose introduces herself as the captain of the kingdom's rescue squad and says she has come to meet the heroes. Before she leaves, Usato asks what his green-colored magic means. The moment Rose hears that, she stares at him and immediately asks the king for permission to take Usato with her. The king refuses and orders his guards to keep Usato away from Rose. However, Rose has no intention of giving up. She chases after Usato and forcibly takes him away. Afterward, she boldly declares to the king that she will personally train Usato until he becomes an exceptional healing mage. Since Usato is merely an innocent victim who was dragged into the summoning by accident, the king deeply regrets what has happened. Even so, there is little he can do because Rose desperately needs a healing mage. Meanwhile, Inukami and Kazuki remain at the royal palace, where the kingdom does its best to comfort them. That night, Usato is introduced to the members of Rose's unit. Their intimidating appearance immediately terrifies him, leaving him convinced that his new life is about to become far more difficult than he ever imagined. At first, Usato believes that everything is just a dream. However, when he wakes up, he realizes that he is truly in another world. Not long afterward, Kazuki and Inukami come to visit him. They are deeply worried after hearing that he was taken away by force. Usato is happy to see them again, but the moment he remembers that his training is about to begin, his mood immediately drops because he has no idea what awaits him the next day. Although the training seems intimidating, Inukami believes that Usato is ready to face it. Her confidence motivates both her and Kazuki to begin their own training and give everything they have in this new world. Afterward, Rose gives Usato a journal and tells him to record his daily training experiences and how he feels after each session. The training begins every morning after breakfast. On the first day, it is much easier than Usato expected. He is taught how to sense the magical energy flowing inside his body. After that, he spends time reading books about the kingdoms, races, and monsters that inhabit this world. However, starting from the second day, everything changes. Usato is forced to run at full speed for hours without stopping. He keeps running until his muscles are completely exhausted every time he stumbles or falls. Rose immediately scolds him. By the 4th day, he is running alongside the other members of the rescue unit, but one after another, they easily overtake him because he is still much slower than everyone else. This training is nothing like what Usato had imagined. Even though he is only running, he gradually learns how to draw magical energy from within his body. With this ability, he can continuously heal himself while training, allowing him to push his body beyond its normal limits. One day, Rose finally explains the true purpose of this brutal physical training. It is designed to help rescuers evacuate injured allies and save lives as quickly as possible on the battlefield. The faster they can move, the faster they can rescue wounded soldiers. After learning this, Usato's training becomes even harsher. At one point, he even gets into a fight with another member because his food was stolen, after not seeing him for quite some time. Kazuki and Inukami come to visit again. When Kazuki sees Usato's condition, he is shocked by just how merciless Rose's training program really is. Meanwhile, Inukami is more interested in the muscles Usato has developed. Commander Siglis of the Royal Knights immediately questions Rose's training methods, arguing that her approach is practically destroying a person's future. Even so, Rose remains confident in her own methods. Afterward, she orders Usato to take a break so he can spend some time talking with his friends. While they are chatting, Usato asks about the girl who came with them. She introduces herself as Celia, the princess of the Kingdom of Llinger. The moment Usato realizes she is royalty, he panics and immediately becomes overly formal. However, Celia asks him to act normally so everyone can feel more comfortable. Kazuki then asks whether Usato's training is always this intense. Usato replies that today's training was actually considered relatively easy. He then asks about Kazuki and Inukami's own training. According to Kazuki, their training is certainly difficult, but their instructors still take both their physical and mental limits into consideration. At that moment, Inukami suddenly lifts Usato's shirt out of curiosity because she wants to see and touch his newly developed abs. Shortly afterward, someone arrives to deliver Usato's meal. Instead of thanking the person, Usato immediately challenges him to a duel because he had stolen Usato's food before. Seeing this, Inukami realizes that Usato has adapted to life in this world much faster than either of them. His determination motivates both her and Kazuki to keep working hard in their own training. The following day, Rose takes Usato outside the kingdom and orders him to defeat a grand grizzly, a massive monster that has lived for more than 100 years. Since he has never been taught how to fight, Usato believes there is no way he can defeat such a monster. However, Rose forces him to do it anyway and throws him into the forest, which happens to be the Grand Grizzly's territory. Thanks to his healing magic, Usato lands safely not long after arriving. A Grand Grizzly suddenly spots him and begins chasing him. At first, Usato is confident in his running ability, but he quickly realizes that the monster is just as fast as he is. To make matters worse, the Grand Grizzlies travel in groups, causing his courage to disappear completely in the end. He barely escapes by jumping into a nearby river. On the second day, Usato returns to the Grand Grizzly's territory to study his opponents. While exploring, he notices deep claw marks on a tree and sees something moving in the bushes. Thinking it is another Grand Grizzly, he prepares himself, but a small injured rabbit emerges instead, feeling sorry for it. Usato heals its wounds with his healing magic. From that moment on, the rabbit begins following him wherever he goes. Not long afterward, Usato discovers a group of Grand Grizzlies. Looking at them more carefully, he realizes they actually seem rather adorable, making him reluctant to kill them. However, after carelessly drinking water from the forest, he suddenly suffers severe stomach pain that feels like poisoning. Even his healing magic cannot cure it. To avoid getting poisoned again, Usato starts drinking only from a spring where the rabbit usually gets its water. Suddenly, a monster appears before him. It is a gigantic snake unlike anything he has ever seen. By the 6th day, Usato grows increasingly frustrated. He does not want to kill the Grand Grizzlies, but he also knows he cannot return home unless he defeats one. Eventually, he resolves to face them the following day. The next morning, Usato discovers that the entire group of Grand Grizzlies has already been slaughtered. Judging from their wounds, he concludes that the giant snake was responsible. Furious that someone else killed the monsters he was supposed to defeat, Usato decides to take revenge on the snake instead. Meanwhile, Kazuki and Inukami come to visit Usato once again. Unfortunately, they are unable to meet him because he is undergoing special training with Rose. Kazuki is extremely worried about his friend, but Inukami reassures him, believing that Usato will definitely return safely. At the same time, Usato prepares for his battle against the giant snake. He crafts a wooden spear to use as his weapon. Once everything is ready, He heads straight toward the monster's territory. During the fight, he successfully stabs one of the snake's eyes with his spear. However, the snake immediately retaliates by biting his arm, causing him intense pain. Fortunately, Usato possesses healing magic. He instantly heals his injuries and counterattacks by thrusting his spear into the inside of the snake's mouth. Besides its enormous size, the snake also possesses deadly venom. Since Usato had previously suffered from poisoning, he already understands how to deal with it. Whenever the venom damages his body internally, he simply heals himself from the inside with his magic. After recovering, Usato launches another attack. This time, he receives unexpected help from a young blue grizzly whose parents were killed by the giant snake. Together, they gradually weaken the monster until Usato finally defeats it with his spear. However, moments later, the giant snake suddenly rises again. Hearing Usato's desperate scream, Rose immediately arrives and rescues him from the monster. With that, Usato's special training officially comes to an end. He successfully passes the final test and is declared qualified to fight alongside Rose on the battlefield. Meanwhile, in the Demon King's castle, the Demon King asks his subordinate about the progress of their plan to invade the Kingdom of Llinger. The subordinate reports that all preparations are nearly complete and that the attack will begin very soon. To prepare for the war against the Kingdom of Llinger, the Demon King's army has developed prototype Demon Beast and assembled a massive military force. Even so, they are still not confident that victory is guaranteed. Besides Commander Siglas, the Kingdom of Llinger is also protected by an exceptional healing mage whose abilities have repeatedly overwhelmed the demon army. After surviving in the forest for 2 weeks, Usato is finally able to sleep comfortably back at the rescue unit's headquarters. The next morning, Usato feeds the young blue grizzly he met in the forest. While taking care of the cub, he gives it the name Blurn. Since Blurn has become completely tame, Usato wants to keep it as a companion and Rose approves, officially making it an asset of the kingdom's rescue squad. However, Rose has no intention of letting Blurn stay without contributing. She orders Usato to carry Blurn around the city as part of a battlefield evacuation simulation. Along the way, Usato has to overcome numerous obstacles. After making it through the challenging course, he finally reaches the city. At first, the townspeople are frightened because he is carrying a monster. However, once they learn that he belongs to the rescue squad, they quickly accept the situation. While walking through the city, a man calls out to Usato. Unfortunately, the man's physical condition is so poor that he cannot catch up and ends up collapsing. Seeing this, Usato immediately rushes over and heals his injuries with his healing magic. Afterward, the two sit together on a staircase and begin chatting. During their conversation, Usato learns that the man's name is Orger, a healing mage who also serves in the kingdom's rescue squad. Together with his younger sister, Orga helps treat the townspeople using healing magic. However, as a member of the rescue squad, he is also expected to fight alongside Rose on the battlefield whenever an emergency rises. After talking for a while, Orga returns to his clinic because he does not want to be scolded by his younger sister, who is also a healing mage. Before leaving, Orga tells Usato not to hate Rose. According to him, although Rose cannot exactly be called a kind person, she is simply a little socially awkward. Afterward, Usato heads to the royal palace. Even though he is bringing a bear with him, the guards allow him to enter because Rose has personally guaranteed his safety. Once inside, Usato finds Inukami training alongside the kingdom's knights. As soon as she notices him, Inukami immediately stops training and invites Usato to chat in the palace garden. She is eager to pet Blurn, but the little blue grizzly refuses and ends up biting her instead. Because of the intense training she has been enduring, Inukami's hands are covered with calluses, so Usato uses his healing magic to treat them. His kindness causes Inukami to blush. Meanwhile, Kazuki is nowhere to be found in the palace. He is undergoing special training designed to prepare him for direct combat against monsters. The following day, Usato is asked to accompany Inukami during her training. Since he has only recently returned from the forest, Rose initially refuses the request. However, because the king personally asks for it as well, she has no choice but to agree. Usato's presence makes Inukami incredibly excited, especially because he brings the adorable Blurn along. Before they leave, Rose gives Inukami a serious warning. She reminds her that Usato is not an all-purpose healer and cannot bring the dead back to life. Because of that, Inukami should never rely on him too much. Not long afterward, they set off toward the edge of the dark forest of Llinger. During the journey, Inukami desperately wants to pet Blurn, but Usato refuses because the little bear is fast asleep. A short while later, Blurn wakes up, and Usato tells him to walk on his own. However, since the cub is still sleepy, Inukami offers to carry him instead. The result is exactly what Usato expected. Inukami immediately loses her balance and falls to the ground. getting crushed beneath Blurren's surprisingly heavy body. Not long after that, a group of bandits blocks their path. The bandits demand all of their valuables and threaten to attack if they refuse. Usato finds the bandits completely unimpressive. In fact, Inukami looks genuinely excited because it is her first time encountering real bandits. However, the moment the bandits notice the blue grizzly, their courage instantly disappears, taking advantage of their panic. Inukami launches a lightning magic attack. Unfortunately, her spell attracts the attention of another monster. The creature charges straight toward her, and just before it can hit her, Usato jumps in to protect her. Both of them are knocked into a nearby river. The impact leaves Usato unconscious. As Inukami prepares to carry him to safety, he suddenly wakes up, catching her completely off guard and making her flustered. After regaining consciousness, Usato immediately heals Inukami's injuries. Once everything settles down, he explains that the area is filled with monsters that are far more dangerous than anything they have encountered before. For that reason, they need to leave as quickly as possible. However, since it is already getting dark, they are forced to spend the night in a safe location nearby. Fortunately, Inukami's lightning magic proves extremely useful for survival. With careful use, she is able to catch fish and start a campfire, allowing them to avoid both hunger and the cold later. When Usato takes off his shirt, Inukami becomes embarrassed after noticing how muscular his body has become. However, the awkward atmosphere quickly disappears when her attention is drawn to a poisonous monkey lurking nearby. Round midnight, Usato remarks that surviving in the wilderness is much easier as long as Inukami is with him. However, Inukami does not take it as a compliment. Instead, she feels as though Usato is treating her like a multi-purpose tool. Just as Usato is about to fall asleep, Inukami opens up about her true feelings. She admits that she has no desire to return to their original world and has no regrets about leaving it behind. To her, being summoned to this world is an opportunity to finally be free. She explains that she no longer feels trapped here, and that sense of freedom means everything to her. Usato believes that her feelings are completely valid. He reveals that he feels the same way and wants to protect this world together with her. Hearing those words, Inukami is genuinely happy that she can finally speak honestly with Usato. The following day, they reunite with Blurren and successfully make it back safely. After returning to the royal palace, the king expresses his gratitude that they made it back unharmed. He also apologizes for putting them through such a dangerous ordeal. Once he finishes speaking with Usato and Inukami, the king moves on to an important meeting with his ministers. Their serious discussion piques Usato's curiosity. At the same time, Kazuki arrives to greet them. As soon as they meet, Kazuki admits that he was extremely worried after they disappeared during the monster attack. While they were missing, Rose reassured him by saying that Usato was not the type to die so easily. According to Kazuki, Rose's unwavering faith in her subordinates is truly admirable. After chatting for a while, Usato and Inukami leave, while Kazuki stays behind with Princess Celia. Once they are alone, Celia confesses that she wants to become closer to Kazuki. She asks him to call her by her first name instead of using formal titles. Meanwhile, the king and his ministers continue discussing the Demon King's movements based on reports from the front lines. They conclude that the recent monster attack was orchestrated by the Demon King's army. During the meeting, the king asks Rose to return as a battlefield commander. However, she refuses. She is still haunted by the memories of the past, when she failed to save every member of her squad. Besides that, she has another goal in mind. Rose wants to create subordinates who simply cannot die. That is why she has been training Usato so relentlessly, using his healing magic to push him beyond the limits of an ordinary human. The next day, Usato is assigned to deliver a letter. As he walks through town, the citizens stare at him in confusion. Nearly everyone comments on the fact that, for once, he is walking around without carrying a monster on his back. Before long, Usato arrives at a local clinic. There, he is greeted by Yuru, Orga's younger sister, who is also a healing mage. She has already heard plenty about Usato from her brother, but she completely forgets his name and accidentally calls him Usagi instead. At the time, Orga is busy treating a patient, since he is easily distracted while working. Usato and Yuru quietly peek at him from behind a curtain, although both of them are healing mages. Orga's healing magic looks very different from Usato's. His magic glows with a dark green light and gives off an incredibly gentle aura. Within moments, the patient is completely healed. After Orga finishes, Usato hands over the letter. Yuru then asks how the members of the rescue squad are doing. Usato replies that they still look as intimidating as ever. Hearing that, Yuru laughs, taking it as proof that everyone is doing just fine. She also explains that she and Orga were once members of the rescue squad themselves, but they could not endure Rose's brutally intense training. Suddenly, a townsman falls from a rooftop while making repairs. Orga, Yuru, and Usato immediately rush over to save him. Once everything settles down, Orga tells his sister about the contents of the letter he has just received. It is an official summons from Rose, ordering him to report to the battlefield. Just as Usato is about to head home, a mysterious fox-eared girl suddenly appears before him. She shows him a vision of the future in which both heroes die during the upcoming battle. She tells Usato that he must change that future before quietly disappearing without another word. The illusion shown by the fox girl left Usato in a panic. He immediately searched for her, but she had already vanished without leaving a trace. Not long afterward, Rose returned from her reconnaissance mission. She informed Usato that King Ebis's army was building a bridge to cross into the Kingdom of Llinger. However, they still had a little time because Rose had already destroyed the bridge. Usato then told Rose about his encounter with the fox girl, and it turned out that Rose knew exactly who she was. Rose explained that the fox girl had come to the kingdom 2 years earlier. Although she was only around 12 years old at the time, she had managed to reach the kingdom all by herself without being captured by bandits or kidnappers. After explaining this, Rose immediately went to report to the king. Upon hearing her report, the king decided to announce the news of the Demon King's army's planned invasion. He also summoned the heroes to personally inform them of the situation. Meanwhile, Usato noticed a light shining through his window. When he went to check, he discovered that it was Sir Kazuki calling for him. After they met, Kazuki revealed that they would soon be going to war against the Demon King's army. Unable to sleep because of the thought, he had left the palace to clear his mind. Kazuki admitted that he wanted to run away because he was terrified of facing enemies who genuinely intended to kill him. He felt like a coward, yet at the same time, everyone in the kingdom had treated him with great kindness. That kindness only made him feel even more burdened by their expectations. Usato understood exactly how he felt. He advised Kazuki not to worry about living up to everyone's expectations and reminded him that it was okay to put his own feelings first. Kazuki then asked, "What about you, Usato?" Usato replied that he was also deeply afraid. However, he had already decided to keep fighting for the people of the kingdom and to protect Kazuki and Inukami, whom he considered his precious friends. Hearing those words, Kazuki gradually calmed down. He still wasn't sure if he could fight as a hero, but he decided that he would fight to protect his friends. Afterward, Kazuki returned to the palace, unbeknownst to them. Inukami had secretly been listening to their conversation. As soon as Kazuki left, she teased Usato, asking if that was what people called the power of friendship between men. Her teasing left Usato feeling embarrassed, as he realized he had said something rather cringeworthy. The following day, the king began preparing the army for the coming battle. Although they had successfully repelled the Demon King's forces before, this time the enemy's army was far larger. Even so, the kingdom had its own advantages, the presence of 2 heroes and the rescue unit, which had achieved remarkable accomplishments 2 years earlier. The king then announced that the army would depart the next day and ordered every soldier to make the necessary preparations. Before leaving, Kazuki said his farewell to Princess Celia, and she prayed for his safe return. Meanwhile, Usato and the other members of the rescue unit were busy transporting supplies for the upcoming war. In the middle of their work, Usato was summoned to the captain's office, where Rose explained his responsibilities on the battlefield as a member of the rescue unit. Usato was strictly forbidden from charging into the front lines at the beginning of the battle. He was also instructed not to heal people indiscriminately and to always prioritize his own safety above all else. After receiving these instructions, Usato was finally given the official uniform of the rescue unit. On the way to the battlefield, Yuru complained to her older brother that the journey felt far too long. However, there was little they could do, as it was impossible to confront the Demon King's army near the royal palace. At the same time, Usato asked the captain what demons were like. Rose explained that they were humanoid beings with strange horns. They also possessed physical strength and magical power far beyond that of ordinary humans. 5 years earlier, the king had informed his army about the appearance of the demons. As a precaution, he ordered the troops to escort merchants traveling throughout the kingdom. The mission was assigned to the kingdom's generals and their subordinates, including Rose, who was serving as a general at the time. After meeting with the king, Rose was approached by her deputy. All wanted to discuss the dangers mentioned during the king's briefing, but Rose immediately punched him for eavesdropping on a confidential conversation. After that incident, Rose decided to personally supervise her soldiers' training. She was already known for putting her subordinates through extremely harsh training. As soon as the soldiers heard that Rose would be joining the session herself, they immediately wondered what all had done to provoke her. They even scolded him without caring that he was their superior officer. A week later, Rose received a report from the king that demons had been hunting monsters within the kingdom's territory. Their movements were highly organized. Rose was ordered to investigate their activities, and she was authorized to use force if necessary. That night, Rose explained the mission to the entire unit. All tried to encourage his comrades, but they only yelled at him for making their lives miserable with intense training over the past week. Rose then declared that everyone had to prepare thoroughly, while she herself would personally lead the mission. Hearing that, the soldiers immediately became excited. They believed that no enemy could match their squad as long as their captain fought alongside them. The following day, they began their journey into the forest. Unfortunately, their search yielded no results. After discussing the situation with Rose, all ordered the soldiers to head toward the western side of the forest and leave their horses behind, so they could move more easily across the rough terrain. Although a few soldiers complained, they still obeyed his orders that night. All confessed to Rose that he didn't think he was worthy of being the vice captain. He felt that he was often too stubborn in his beliefs and frequently challenged the orders of his superiors. He also complained that his subordinates rarely listened to his commands. Rose firmly told him that she would never choose someone unworthy to become her deputy. In her eyes, All was the type of person who would continue moving forward no matter how difficult the situation became. That determination inspired the people around him, as long as All remained true to himself. His subordinates would naturally follow him without needing to be ordered. Unbeknownst to them, the other soldiers had secretly overheard the conversation. They assured All that they trusted him and that none of them hated him. The next day, Rose's unit finally encountered the demons, and battle became unavoidable. Rose ordered All to lead the troops while she confronted the enemy commander herself. Rose launched a relentless assault, charging into close combat before ripping a tree from the ground and hurling it at her opponent. However, her enemy possessed powerful wind-based defensive abilities. As a result, the battle remained evenly matched, forcing both fighters to unleash their full strength. The demon introduced himself as Nero, as he noticed his subordinates beginning to lose the battle. Nero drew a cursed sword capable of nullifying healing magic. He also ordered all of his followers to launch suicidal attacks without hesitation. As a result, both sides suffered heavy casualties. Watching her soldiers being slaughtered filled Rose with rage, causing her to lose her composure. Because of that, she suffered severe injuries to her eye and leg. Those wounds could not be healed with healing magic. When Nero attacked again, All immediately threw himself in front of Rose. Risking his own life to protect her, Rose was overcome with regret as All received a deep slash that could never be healed. Nero declared that he would never forget the deaths of either his own subordinates or Rose's soldiers. Hearing those words, Rose grabbed Nero's cursed sword and beat him with overwhelming fury. Nero attempted to cast a spell, but Rose slammed him into the ground before he could finish. She then delivered a crushing punch that sent him flying, impaling him on his own sword. Just as Rose was about to finish him off, Nero was suddenly rescued by one of his disciples. Seeing this, Rose froze for a moment. She couldn't understand why anyone would still care about Nero after he had sacrificed every one of his own followers. At that same moment, All called out to Rose with his final breath. He told her that he was happy to have fought as her subordinate the following day. Rose reported everything that had happened to the king. At the same time, she resigned from her position as captain and completely left the military. On her way home, Rose was approached by the parents of one of the fallen soldiers. She could only blame herself for their son's death, but instead of condemning her, they thanked Rose for bringing their son's body home. They also told her that he had smiled more often after joining Rose's unit. After returning home, Rose isolated herself, reflecting on her own weakness. From time to time, other knights visited to make sure she was doing well. Although the curse inflicted by the demon's sword had already faded, Rose refused to heal her damaged eye because she considered it a permanent reminder of her failure to protect her subordinates. As she began to lose her sense of purpose, Rose remembered the words of her fallen comrades. Those memories inspired her to become the person they had always admired instead of remaining trapped in grief. She realized that another war against the demons was inevitable and that more knights would one day be forced to sacrifice themselves for the kingdom. As a healing mage, however, Rose vowed to prevent as many deaths as possible. With that determination, she decided to establish the rescue unit. Using her healing magic, she sought people who could move quickly and possessed unwavering mental strength, believing that with such comrades by her side, she could ensure that none of her subordinates would ever die again. The kingdom's army finally arrived at the battlefield. They set up camp and prepared for the upcoming battle. The next morning, Inukami approached Usato and proudly showed off her new gear, asking for his opinion. However, Usato had no idea what to say. Inukami explained that the armor enhanced her lightning magic and had a flawless design. Usato commented that Inukami seemed to prefer cool-looking equipment over something cute. Inukami immediately denied it and insisted that Usato give her a proper compliment, which made her happy shortly afterward. Kazuki arrived to bring Inukami to the front lines. Together with the kingdom's mages and knights, they prepared to face the enemy forces that were beginning to appear. As soon as the enemy came into view, the mages launched the first attack. However, the targets they struck turned out to be nothing more than illusions. The real demon army attacked from a different direction. Rose immediately ordered the Black Squad to search for the wounded and bring them back to the medical tents, while Orga and Yururu focused on healing the injured. Before long, wounded soldiers were carried into the tents, where the healing team immediately treated them with recovery magic. One of the injured soldiers reported being attacked by a giant snake, the same type of monster Usato had defeated before. Besides the giant snakes, there were also Black Knights who possessed the terrifying ability to reflect every attack directed at them. Fortunately, the healing team responded quickly, preventing the number of casualties from rising. In the middle of the battle, Rose took Usato to the front lines before they parted ways. She gave him some important advice, since Usato was unable to kill his enemies. Rose taught him an effective technique to survive even in desperate situations. As time passed, more and more soldiers began to fall in battle. Whenever someone was cornered, Usato rushed in to rescue them and healed their wounds with his recovery magic. Elsewhere, the heroes and their troops successfully defeated a group of enemies. However, just as they were about to advance, they were blocked by an armored demon and his subordinates. Several knights charged at him, but the Black Knight remained completely unharmed, and every attack was reflected back at the attackers instead. Inukami quickly realized her opponent's ability and immediately stopped Kazuki from attacking recklessly. Meanwhile, Usato was reminded of the prophecy that foretold the deaths of his friends. A terrible headache overwhelmed him, and he nearly fell victim to a demon's attack. Fortunately, he was saved by someone he had previously healed. Usato immediately asked where the heroes were fighting after learning their location. He rushed toward the front lines to save them. At the same time, Inukami and Kazuki continued attacking while searching for their opponent's weakness. The Black Knight reflected every attack except those aimed at his back, which appeared to be his blind spot. Realizing this, Inukami immediately attacked the Black Knight's back. However, it turned out to be a trap. The demon could actually choose which attacks to reflect at will and arrogantly declared that no one could injure him. Because of that mistake, both Inukami and Kazuki suffered severe injuries. As Inukami lost consciousness, memories of her past came flooding back. On the day before she was transported to another world, she had met Usato. That encounter had made her genuinely happy because Usato never cared about the fake persona she showed others. Instead, he accepted the true self she revealed in this world. As long as Usato and Kazuki were by her side, Inukami believed everything would be alright while she remained unconscious. Usato broke through to the front lines and slammed the Black Knight with a powerful punch. He then immediately healed Inukami and Kazuki before carrying them to safety. Meanwhile, the armored demon suddenly felt intense pain. It turned out that Usato's punches were highly effective and could not be reflected. Realizing this, Inukami quickly informed Usato. After hearing her explanation, Usato decided to fight in order to save even more people. He charged forward while covering his entire body with healing magic, making the Black Knight's attacks completely ineffective. At the same time, Usato's punches were able to pierce through his opponent's armor. With every strike, he simultaneously healed his enemy's wounds. Since the reflection ability only activated when the target received injuries, it could not respond to attacks coded in healing magic. Even so, the Black Knight still felt the full force of Usato's physical blows. The situation enraged the Black Knight. He launched a series of powerful attacks, but Usato countered them with his healing fists. To everyone's surprise, Usato defeated him. He knocked the Black Knight unconscious, forcing the demon army to retreat from the battlefield. Inukami remarked that Usato had accomplished something truly incredible. Besides praising him, she was also curious about his healing punches. Usato explained that it was not a special technique. He had simply coated his fists with healing magic, just as the captain had taught him before. Although the technique did not inflict actual wounds, it was able to weaken his opponent thanks to those healing punches. Both Inukami and Kazuki escaped death soon afterward. Kazuki reported that the giant snake monsters had begun advancing on the front lines. Inukami immediately headed there to defeat them. Meanwhile, Captain Rose called Usato back because countless wounded soldiers were waiting in the medical tents. News that a member of the rescue squad had defeated the Black Knight soon reached the demon general. Realizing they could no longer win the battle, the demon army chose to withdraw from the battlefield. At the same time, Inukami and Kazuki confronted the giant snake and defeated it in a short time with a decisive attack. Back at the recovery tents, every wounded soldier was treated by the healing mages. While tending to the injured, Rose said that the battle would never have ended so quickly without Usato's presence. She even admitted that they might have lost the battle without him. Rose added that Usato had done an outstanding job as a member of the rescue squad. Hearing those heartfelt words of praise, Usato burst into tears, remembering all the hardship and relentless training he had endured since first arriving in this new world. After the war ended, the knights thanked Usato for healing their injuries. With great humility, Usato thanked them in return, saying that the knights had helped him just as much as he had helped them. Soon afterward, Usato was summoned by the king. The king needed his assistance in gathering information from the Black Knight whom Usato had captured. According to their intelligence, the girl was not particularly loyal to the Demon King. Because of that, Usato was asked to question her, especially about the types of magic possessed by the demon commanders. Accompanied by Inukami, Usato headed to the underground prison. Noticing that the demon girl was still suffering from the injuries caused by his punches, Usato immediately healed her. His gentle treatment made the girl feel surprisingly comfortable. She even asked Usato to stay with her a little longer after returning from the castle. Usato was immediately greeted by Rose after a long break. Rose resumed his training. Coincidentally, Usato also wanted to improve his healing magic. However, Rose had no intention of training his healing abilities. Instead, she simply beat him up and ordered him to dodge every single one of her attacks. The purpose of this training was to ensure that Usato would not rely entirely on healing magic. After 3 days of intense training, Usato visited the Black Knight again. He shared his frustrations about the training and admitted that he did not understand its purpose. The Black Knight asked why he was telling her all of this. Usato replied that he was simply curious about how she was doing and wanted to know what she planned to do afterward. However, as a prisoner, the Black Knight had no freedom to decide her own future. After leaving the prison cell, Usato saw Kazuki training. He felt a little jealous because Kazuki's training looked so relaxed compared to his own brutal regimen. While chatting, Kazuki casually mentioned that he had nearly died during the battle. That statement immediately caught Princess Celia's attention, prompting her to bombard Kazuki with questions. Meanwhile, in the underground prison, Rose paid a visit to the Black Knight. She offered her only two choices: rot to death in prison or become a useful demon. Rose intended to recruit her into the rescue squad and personally train her to someone valuable to the team. The Black Knight had no right to refuse. More importantly, she could not stand against Rose because her greatest weakness was healing magic. In the end, Rose brought the girl back to the rescue squad's headquarters, and Usato was assigned to keep an eye on her. That night, Usato was informed that he had received an important mission from the king. He was to serve as an envoy to a neighboring kingdom in order to establish an alliance against the demon army. While Usato and Inukami were strolling through the marketplace, they unexpectedly ran into the foxfolk child whom Usato had met before. Usato immediately caught the child. However, instead of resisting, the young foxfolk insisted that Usato repay the favor he owed and begged him to save his mother. The Black Knight underwent the same training as Usato. She ran alongside the other members while being supervised by Captain Rose. Meanwhile, Usato and Inukami took the Fox Girl to the healing team's headquarters. It turned out that the Fox Girl already knew about Usato and Inukami. She had deliberately left the Beast Kingdom because she wanted to meet them. Usato then asked why she had given him a vision of the future. The girl explained that if she hadn't done so, the heroes would have died and the kingdom would have been destroyed. She also revealed that she possessed the ability to predict the future through magic, and she had been seeing this prophecy since a year ago. Usato thought that Yururu and Orga might be able to help her. However, the girl needed a healer who could also fight. She was too afraid to ask Ross for help, so she begged Usato to accompany her to the Beast Kingdom. Fortunately, Usato and Inukami had been assigned to deliver a letter to a neighboring country. They planned to stop by the Beast Kingdom while carrying out their mission. However, they first needed permission from their captain. Usato told Ross about their plan. Ross immediately intended to report it to the king because the girl was an important figure in the Beast Kingdom. If her presence in this kingdom became known, the Beast Kingdom might consider them enemies. The next day, Usato once again joined his teammates for training. During the training, the Black Knight watched him closely because Usato didn't seem tired even after running for a long time. Afterward, Usato trained in combat against Ross. He was only ordered to dodge her attacks, but he still struggled and was repeatedly hit by Ross. The Black Knight could only watch from a distance. After training, Usato asked the Black Knight for her name. Although she was hesitant at first, she finally revealed that his name was Phil. Since Sesh was rarely called by that name, Phil became embarrassed, however. Usato simply ignored her, leaving Phil disappointed. She then ran until she became completely exhausted and eventually passed out. That night, Ross told Usato that their travel plans had been approved by the king. They were allowed to deliver the letter to the neighboring country while also helping Amiko, without them realizing it. Phil secretly overheard their conversation, worried about Usato. She decided to escape from the healing team's headquarters. Meanwhile, Usato and the heroes prepared for their journey. Usato chose a knight he knew to accompany them as an escort. Once all the preparations were complete, they set off toward the neighboring country. On the other hand, Rose discovered that Phil had escaped. As a result, Phil was immediately given even more intense training as punishment. And with that, Usato's journey for his next mission will have to come to an end in this season. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss more exciting anime recap stories. Thank you for watching.